now being joined by Ian Hislop. Ian, congratulations.
Thank you.
Where have you been elected?
Clacton, I think.
What have you made of it so far, Ian?
Very, very little. No, I started the evening with everyone saying extraordinary, this exit poll. And then every sort of half an hour someone was saying, I don't think this poll's right.
And there's a lot going on under the bonnet of it.
Yes.
There were Labour gains that aren't factored in, and then Labour people losing seats.
Yes, and then people suddenly noticing, again as the evening goes on, that the Lib Dems have done awfully well. And having spent the evening saying, we're really going to have to cope with reform now, I'm saying, is anyone saying we're going to have to cope with the Lib Dems? I mean, I know no one ever says that, but... Yeah. I mean, they are getting a lot of seats.
They are getting a lot of seats, and a lot more than reform.
Yes, and it just proves that everybody's completely wrong, and that a strategy of going down a water slide and jumping off a paddleboard is excellent.
Callum's pointing again. Callum, what have you spotted?
There's a lot of excitement. Just that Portsmouth North, which is Penny Mordaunt's seat, the declaration, they're on stage, the declaration is imminent, and this is one that's been closely watched this evening.
Can we go live to that?
Because she is a Tory bigwig that may topple.
We'll bring you the sound. Just bring the sound in as you can. Who's gone so far, Ian? Do you think you'll miss?
Next.
So, Kate, just round up where we are. Penny Mordaunt, Commons leader. We'll find out shortly if she's survived. Who else have we lost so far from the cabinet?
Yeah, we've lost Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, and Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, of course. Two really big surprises, I think. I mean, well, I say surprises, they're probably not surprises. Alex Chalk was probably never going to hold on. I think Grant Shapps thought he might be able to. Gillian Keegan has gone as well.
Education Secretary.
She thought there might be a chance, but there was 10,000 votes between the two. So, I mean, really, there obviously
And Simon
wasn't.
Hart, the Chief Whip in Wales, we think.
And Gillian Keegan made that speech about how ungrateful the population is for
Get off
all
your
the hard
fat
work
arse
they
or
do.
something, yeah.
And they did, really. And said, not for us, thanks. It's been a very punitive night.
Yes.
You feel the general public is taking any chance it can.
Well, Therese Coffey's just lost her seat to the Greens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's not surprising. She's environment secretary.
Well, but that's what I mean in terms of voters, jumping with their feet or voting with their feet.
I would like to invite the Lord Mayor of Portsmouth to declare the results.
Okay, here we go. This is the result. Penny Mordaunt's result in Portsmouth.
Thank you, Ashley.
Terrific outfit from the Mayor.
I, Councillor Jason Fazakerley, returning officer for the Portsmouth North constituency, hereby declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate
I thought
was
that
as
was one of
follows.
Penny's medieval numbers.
Simon James Dodd, Liberal Democrat, 3,031. Amanda Louise Martin, Labour Party, 14,495. Penelope Mary Mordaunt, commonly known as Penny Mordaunt, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,715. Duncan Stewart Robinson, the Green Party, 1,851. Melvin Stewart Todd, Reform UK, 8,501.
So confirmation there, Penny Mordaunt becomes the latest cabinet minister to lose her seat.
Elected as a member of Parliament for the Portsmouth
James
North
Johnson.
constituency.
A very quick word on that. Penny Mordaunt, in a lot of the polling, was the favourite if she would have been able to stand both the public Conservative 2019 voters and even in some members' polling to take over the Conservatives. The fact she is out of the race is quite transformative, and some of the more moderate people in the race, people like Rob Jenrick, people like Tom Tugendhat, will be punching the air there. They might be in for an opportunity.
We've got news of another cabinet minister losing their seat as well, Kate.
Yeah, Lucy Fraser, the Culture Secretary, has lost to the Liberal Democrats in the seat of Ely and East Cambridgeshire, and there's less than 1,000 votes in that battle.
Wow. So Penny Mordaunt, what
Did she lose to the Libs?
to Labour
To Labour.
Portsmouth, yeah.
Yeah, she lost to Labour.
And it's a long way from carrying the sword for the king.
It is. Can they not just make her a lady?
Yes, the lady in waiting or something. Carol Walker is in Portsmouth. Carol, what's the atmosphere there like?
Well, we saw Penny Mordaunt and her team come out after obviously being given those results just a couple of minutes before the declaration, and you could see at that point that they realised they hadn't made it, losing by the narrowest of margins. I'm sure Callum's already done the maths, but it's less than 1,000 votes. Amanda Martin, the local Labour teacher, chair of the local Labour Party, has pipped her to the post. There was the Reform candidate didn't make particularly big inroads here, but this is quite a significant shift. And of course, Penny Mordaunt, who had hoped very much to be there in the running as the Conservative Party seeks a future leader, will no longer be able to do that. And I mean, it is worth remembering that she had 28,000 votes last time around. There's been a massive swing there. Again, I haven't done the maths since we just had the declaration. We are expecting to hear from Penny Mordaunt on stage any moment now, but clearly we've been hearing all evening that it is a close race, and Penny Mordaunt is out. Interestingly enough, the Labour winner is the one who's sounding very emotional up on stage. Penny Mordaunt just waiting there, and we are expecting to hear from her.
Okay, Carol, we'll come back to you when we've heard Penny. Well, that's Carol Walker there in Portsmouth North. Some breaking news which is worth bringing you. A cabinet minister's held their seat. Claire Coutinho, the Conservative what is she?
Environment.
Energy. Sorry, PA, I've got that wrong. Energy Secretary. She's won her seat in Surrey East. Well, presumably she's now all of the secretaries.
Well, does she become a leadership contender now then, Claire Coutinho?
I mean, she was a protege of Special Advisor to Rishi Sunak, came in the 2019 election.
Everyone says she's incredibly bright, as they always do when someone is appointed. But is she the only person left?
Her and Mark Francois.
Right, sort of the moderate wing.
The yin and yang. There's more pointing. What are we pointing at
Johnny
now?
Mercer's lost his seat.
Johnny Mercer, a government minister, the veterans minister.
Yes, by about 5,000 votes.
He becomes a veteran.
Now both that seat and the Penny Mordaunt seat are examples where the Labour vote was up, but not by anywhere near as much as the Reform vote was up. And that seems to have again been the thing that has cost it for the Conservatives, the Reform rise rather than a Labour rise.
Yeah, in that Johnny Mercer seat, for example, his vote is down 31 percentage points. Labour's up by 8, but Reform is up by 22.
And it's a similar story in Penny Mordaunt's seat, where Labour are up by 7.9, Conservatives down by 28.4, and Reform up by 20.4.
And they are both big naval cities. Yeah. And similarly, Labour have taken Aldershot, which is neighbouring, is near where I am. That's never had a Conservative MP, I don't think. It's got a massive, barracks. And all of Keir Starmer's had a lot of veterans standing in this election. It's clearly worked. I think we can now hear a bit of Penny Mordaunt in Portsmouth. Let's just take a listen.
Employer ever. The people of Portsmouth are wonderful, hard-working, big-hearted, and anything that I ever achieved was made possible by them. And I thank them for the opportunities they have given me. I will never stop caring for these people or this place. And in all things, I've been guided by them, their common sense, their determination, their ambitions and hopes, their pride in our city and our nation. Tonight, the Conservative Party has taken a battering because it failed to honour the trust that people had placed in it. You can speak all you like of security and freedom, but you can't have either if you are afraid. Afraid about the cost of living or accessing healthcare, or whether the responsibility you shoulder will be recognised and rewarded. That fear steals the future, and it only makes the present matter, and that is why we lost. Our renewal as a party and a country will not be achieved by us talking to an ever smaller slice of ourselves, but by being guided by the people of this country. And if we want again to be the natural party of government, then our values must be the people's. I've lost many good colleagues tonight, but I hope that, like me, they intend to carry on serving their communities with even stronger heart. Our country needs all of us. And finally, I want to thank my campaigners, my team here in Portsmouth, led by Rob New, my parliamentary team, those who supported me, including other political parties, particularly the independent group under George Madgwick, but also the thousands of activists across the country who, in the darkest of times, not of their making, fought like hell for what they believed in and a better future. I've never been prouder of you all. And now each of us has even more reason to fight on, so we must. Good luck to all of you, in particular Amanda, and thank you, Portsmouth.
Penny Mordaunt there, making a speech after losing her seat in Portsmouth North, warning her Conservative colleagues they won't win by speaking to an ever smaller slice of ourselves. There'll be nobody left at this rate. Ian Hislop still with us in the studio.
Which slice is she referring to?
I assume she means the sort of reformy slice.
Yes. I mean, they are getting quite a lot of votes. I mean, I am aware we're going to hear Farage a great deal saying he should not only be on Question Time every week with that sort of vote, but he should be on all committees and preferably consulted about everything. I mean, it's building up. What sort of percentage is he going to get overall, do you think?
I think looking at this, it looks like it's around 17 or 18%.
OK, so it's a bit like those Euro elections where he got this enormous vote, but no seats.
Yeah. Very, very small. Robert Jenrick has won his seat in Newark, former immigration minister, who's had quite the glow up. Is that the right phrase, Kate?
Yeah.
Clearly a leadership glow up.
Yeah. I love how you come to me on that. Just saying.
Well, you're the one who's made an effort during the course of the evening, as the rest of us have faded.
Jenrick's still in, is he?
Yes, he's in.
Yeah,
he's in. Right.
So it'll be him and Sorella a fight to the death.
I mean, again, Jenrick hasn't got a terribly good record, has he? I mean, the donation scandal over the development project and the election breakfast.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the best of them that have been left?
Well, it's still.
That's a rhetorical question, Matt.
just a very quick point, if I may. I think looking at these results and what we see with Labour putting on some votes but not huge amounts, Reform UK really being the party that's taking away from the Conservatives. The more I look at these results, the more I think that if Reform UK were not in this race, or indeed a Farage-led Reform UK, which led them to get so much support, then I think the Conservatives could have actually been competitive in this election. Now, you may think that sounds mad, but actually Labour were coming from so far behind. Looking at some of these numbers, I don't think the Conservatives would be able to form a government, but they may have been able to push a hung parliament if they'd have managed to get reform down. It does make you think. Rishi Sunak's decision to go early in this election rather than later towards the year where he could have bound Farage into the US election does seem to be a truly colossal error.
And clearly he thought that but he thought he'd been smart by going earlier, and he'd caught Farage on the hop.
Exactly, I think they thought they could flush Farage out, but in retrospect, he was always going to be locked into the US in October. He loves it.
Yeah, he loves it. Callum, what have you got?
I've just got a few results to bring you just in the last few minutes. Labour gains Leeds, South West and Morley. Also Walsall and Bloxwich from the Conservatives. The Conservatives have held Solihull West and Shirley. And there have been a few results from Scotland, which I think are just building on the narrative from Scotland, actually. This sort of consistent theme is Labour gains, particularly in the central belt at the moment, and the swings are really quite noticeable. So Livingston, a most recent Labour gain in the central belt, a swing of 16.5% from the SNP. So Labour share up 18.8 points. The SNP down 14.3. And here's the other bit of the story from Scotland. Tories finishing fourth behind Reform. Just one exception to that is John Lemon, who's held Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk for the Scottish Conservatives, actually increasing his majority in the constituency in the Scottish borders. He was also a minister in the Scotland office. I think that job is that ship has sailed on that particular one. And then another Scotland result I just wanted to mention is Mid Dumbartonshire, which is a Lib Dem gain from the SNP on a 12.6% swing. Now, this is Amy Callaghan, who's out for the SNP And you remember this was Joel Swinton's seat, so Amy Callaghan won it from Joel Swinton. There's been some boundary tweaks, but in essence, that has gone back to the Lib Dems, having booted out the Lib Dem leader at the time by 149 votes, the SNP in 2019. Overall, bad night for the SNP, and it's looking like it's going to get worse.
Okay, so far on our big beast list, Alex Chalk, the Justice Secretary, Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, Simon Hart, the Chief Whip, Lucy Fraser, the Culture Secretary, Penny Mordaunt, the Commons Leader, and Johnny Mercer, the Veterans Minister, are all out. Kate?
I've got a belter for you here. West Streeting has won his seat, right? Ilford North, I think his seat is.
Shadow Health Secretary.
Ilford North, Shadow Health Secretary. Yeah. But the independent candidate, so West Streeting got 15,647 votes. The independent candidate got 15,119.
Wow.
That's like hundreds. That's like 400 or 500 votes.
Jeez. Who was the independent candidate?
Leanne Mohammed. And I wonder if it may well be another
effect.
Gaza ticket, which has really already had an effect. I mean, it's had a huge effect, clearly, on Jonathan Ashworth's
Yes, because
seat.
he lost his seat, the Labour frontbencher.
Yeah.
Let's see if we are going to get the biggest of all beasts. Well, actually, not quite Rishi Sunak. We haven't. We're trying to find out what's going on in Godalming, because they think there might only be 100 votes in it for Jeremy Hunt, as to whether or not the Chancellor holds on to his seat. And in terms of the direction of the party and what happens next, I mean, the main contenders for the leadership, as far as I can make out, are Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, are all back compared to the ones who are currently out. Who would your money be on, James? When you do the polling and the focus groups, out of those three, who do you think is best equipped to bring the party back?
Well, I think it's none of them polls particularly well is the answer. Of those, Kemi Badenoch is the least unpopular, but that's not really saying much. But the problem is that Suella Braverman is more likely to be the choice of the members. I do think there are a couple of other names though. Priti Patel is one that has been talked about. Certainly MPs in the Conservative Party say that she could bridge the gap between the sort of the centre and the right. Another one is Tom Tugendhat. He's the sort of closest to a centrist candidate now that Penny Mordaunt is out of the race. He backed Liz Truss, and then obviously that didn't go so well. But he also backed Remain in 2016, so he might be somebody else who could also cross the gap. Matt, I know I don't want to gazump Kate's intel here at all, but I've got somebody in the seat that Liz Truss is defending, who is at the count and says that it is extremely close in that seat. Now that would be very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and that was Danny Finkelstein put us on notice for that on how to win an
Are
election.
you proposing Liz Truss as the next Conservative leader?
Well, she might not be in Parliament.
Right, I think we found Fee Glover. Fee, are you there?
Yes, I am. I'm going to have to speak in whispers because I've basically put my head in the Wi-Fi box in order to continue with this signal.
We were worried you'd been roped in to help with counting.
No, I've not had to do that because I didn't bring my little plastic thimble with me, Matt. So I wouldn't have been allowed in the counting room at all. But look, it could be the story of the night that it's not the story of the night, because a very calm and smiley Jeremy Hunt has arrived here at the count for Godalming and Ash, and apparently the piles look even. So there are many, many different stories going around the whispering gallery of the press room, and we are moments away from a declaration.
We'll come back to you, Fee, just as soon as we get it. It's unusual for Jeremy Hunt, because he normally looks like he's going to burst into tears when everything's fine. Go on, Kate, what have you got?
Ben Bradley's lost his seat.
Ben Bradley,
Tory MP in
Mansfield.
He's lost his seat to Labour. About 4,000 votes in that one.
Simon Clarke, the former Levelling Up secretary, has also lost his seats.
Yep.
Laura Trott, somebody messaged in saying, can you remember to tell us which big beasts have held on to their seats? I mean, that would probably be quicker. Laura Trott, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, has won her seat in Sevenoaks. So she may or may not play part in
But after 14 years, the description big beasts, I'm afraid a lot of your listeners are going to be thinking, I've no idea who any of those people are.
I could just start making up names.
You could, quite easily.
Greg Evans, gone.
Yeah. He was Chief Secretary to the Secretary's office. Yes, he was big.
Undercarriage.
The biggest of beasts.
The biggest of beasts. Therese Coffey. Oh, we've already done that one, haven't we? Therese Coffey.
She's gone.
And it's interesting because is she a neighbour of Liz Truss? They're not far apart, are they?
They're not far apart. I don't know exactly, but you're quite right.
They're all
not far apart.
karaoke mates.
Indeed. That Ben Bradley result in Mansfield, that is quite totemic, because that was one of the rare 2017 gains for the Conservatives in this much more Leave voting, working class kind of area. They then built that up to a super safe seat in 2019. It was sort of, they rewrote the electoral map even further, and it's now gone. And that really tells you the story of the sort of the birth and death of the Red Wall for the Conservatives.
Ian, would you like a knitting update?
Yes.
So Times Radio listener Heidi got in touch a couple of weeks ago. She's knitting the election for us. Heidi, you there?
I'm here, Matt, yes.
How are you getting on? Because we've had quite a lot of results since we last spoke.
Yeah, knitting like a fool, eyes like burn holes in blankets, progress being made.
Have we frozen? Are you there? Can we see? If you hold it up and talk, we should be able to see it on the Zoom.
I'm here, can you see it?
Yeah, just keep talking. Talk us through the colours.
Right, I'm actually going... I've done a couple of Tory seats, and we've got acres and acres of red. Acres of red coming through.
Very good. So how far behind the total seats do you think you are in your knitting?
Hang on. I'm about 100 to go. 100 behind.
About 100 behind altogether.
There have been 368 declarations, just as a note.
There it is.
There we are.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there we are. Now we can see it. Look at that.
Yes, see?
Doesn't it look good, Ian?
Yes. What is it?
Each time a result comes in,
Yes.
she's doing the colour of the seat.
Ian.
Oh,
It's
yes.
a comforter.
And so by the end, we're going to have a
handy woolly
scarf. A scarf, which,
Oh, right.
which tells
I thought
the
it-
story of the night.
I thought it was literally a seat cover, which would have been sort of apposite.
That's a novel thought.
Do you have wool
Some
seat
people
covers in
at
your
the
house?
bottom.
More like a throw,
Yes,
which
yes.
is the reaction to many of us, to many of
Well,
the result.
Heidi, we'll check back in with you a bit later on.
Right you are.
Carry on. You're doing marvellous work.
Will do.
I think we're going to go now to... where are we going now? Jane. Jane Garvey is in Yorkshire with Rishi Sunak. Jane.
Well, I wish I was with Rishi Sunak. He's supposed to be here.
No one's ever
supposed to be
said
coming.
that.
He's supposed to be imminent. He just hasn't turned up yet. So I can glimpse dawn breaking through the door here in the gymnasium at the North Allerton Leisure Centre. But of the Prime Minister, there is no sign.
Oh, yeah, no,
I've just been told by an
I can see
official.
Dawn out the window.
It could. What you can? Can you?
I
Can
can
you
see Dawn here as well,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I've just spoken to a slightly bashful official who says she said it was about an hour ago, and so she doesn't want to say anything now about how imminent it might be. I'm pretty certain that the Prime Minister will remain the MP for Richmond and North Allerton. It doesn't look as though there are going to be huge historic moments here, but it just would be nice, I've got to be honest, Matt, to get that moment over with, and really quite soon.
Get back to that luxury hotel you've been booked into.
But it is nice, and as I've already said, it has a freestanding bath. And then there's always the thought of a fried egg,
Well, that's
a
better
couple
than
of sausage.
That's better than the
or-
freestanding man you've
black
had at the reception
pudding.
of the hotel you were in the other day. But anyway, let's not get bogged down in that now. Jane,
That-
when there are
a story
results...
for another time.
This is So Times Radio, by the way.
Jane, we'll come back to you when we have news. Callum's got his hand up again.
Just some results, because they're flying in, and I think it's just nice to keep track of some of these. Labour gains Weston Super Mayor from the Conservatives. The Conservatives have held Sutton Coldfield. That's Andrew Mitchell, who's holding on in Sutton Coldfield. What is he deputy for? Was Deputy Foreign Secretary. What else have we got? Labour holding Pontefract, Castleford and Nottingham, which is Yvette Cooper's seat, which there had been some speculation online that it was a bit closer than perhaps Yvette Cooper and the Labour Party would have liked. Some more gains for Labour in Scotland as well. Glasgow South from the SNP, Cumbernauld and Kirkintilloch from the SNP, and some Lib Dem gains, which I think are worth noting tonight as well. Liberal Democrats gaining Yeovil from the Conservatives.
Paddy Ashdown country.
There you are. Also Wimbledon, which was the 16th most marginal constituency in the UK in 2019, next door to Sir Ed Davies' home turf as well. It's an interesting one, Wimbledon, held by the Conservatives for years, then Labour won for the first time in 97. The Conservatives won it back in 2005. They've had it ever since. In any case, there's an interesting kind of, the south of England Lib Dem story coming to fruition. Dorking and Horley is a Lib Dem gain from the Conservatives. And Ed Miliband has held on to Doncaster North for the Labour Party as well.
Well, there we are. Good news for Keir Starmer.
You needed it.
Just on the Western Supermare thing, that is interesting because my past of covering the West Country. There was basically Labour in Bristol, and then nothing until you got to Exeter and then Plymouth. And it's interesting to see Labour making gains in Somerset. They had hoped they might take Bridgewater, which I've just looked up, because the boundary change, it was more the town and less of the countryside. The Conservatives have held that, but not by much, by the look of it. But it is interesting seeing the red and the yellow spreading further and further south in those results. Kate, what are you hearing?
I mean, I'm still trying to digest some of these. The West Streeting result, I think, has implications, actually. And we're seeing this pattern repeated in a number of seats for Labour, where an independent candidate on a pro-Gaza ticket is either taking that seat or running that really, really close. And if we're taking a step back and thinking about what these results mean, I mean, it shows how volatile voters are, for a start. But just trying to interpret what people want as a government, I think is going to be quite difficult for Keir Starmer as a Prime Minister. You cannot ignore the number of votes Reform have got. You've got to try and work out why people are doing that. Is it because they just don't want the Tories? Is it a protest vote? Or is it something much bigger? And does Labour have the answers to those questions? And if it doesn't, how does it stay in office for longer than one term? Because they've got a relatively shallow share of the vote, even if they've got quite a lot of seats. And they've now got people like West Streeting. I think there's 500 votes in that. You know, that's not a big majority. That means that somebody in that position is going to have to spend time in that constituency fighting for it. Now, he's got one of the biggest jobs in government, potentially.
But again, I mean, Galloway did lose, didn't he? So you can see a single issue Gaza vote getting people very worked up, and then it is possible for it to go. I know it wasn't a huge regain, but I think that's sort of...
But it's whether or not those people... It's whether or not those people will come back to the party, and what does the party have to do to win them back?
Yeah.
Will they just come back anyway, or is that taking
where are they going to
people
go? To Reform?
Well, potentially to independent candidates, I suppose. Does it mean we splinter do we splinter this two-party system even more?
The other thing that we mustn't forget is that in a few hours' time, Keir Starmer's going to get up, he's going to go to the palace, he's going to go down the street, and his ability to set the agenda and steal the limelight from George Galloway and Nigel Farage and whatever's left of the Tory party over the coming day, he will need to do that. It's going to take some skill, but he can define that over the next few days.
Yes, and he'll be at conferences where he's talking as Prime Minister about Gaza and talking about ceasefires and talking about what the British government, which will be him, can do about it. And I think that might change things. But I did like your idea of you've got to work out what the Reform Party's about. Well, the Reform Party doesn't have much of a clue.
No, not Reform. I don't mean work out what Reform's about, because I don't think they know. I mean work out why people have voted for Reform. Is it just a Tory protest vote, in which case, fine, the answer is for the Tory party to shape up. But what if it isn't? What if it's something bigger than that?
Well, in our last poll of the election campaign, which is looking like it might be very close to the final vote shares, which is good news for me and jail partners, we had 7% of Labour 2019 voters saying they were going to vote Reform. And that just suddenly jumped up from 2% in the last week of the campaign, and then it stayed stable. So I think that we are seeing some Labour voters go to Reform, and I think that we could see even more go to Reform over the next few years of this parliament.
And the last week was the week when we found out that a number of their candidates would fit in nicely in the European right. That's grim.
Which is what we're seeing.